Hold my hand inside your hands.
The last part of this 7th chapter of the first epistle to the Corinthians, he is discussing what to do if you have a virgin who is, say, your daughter, or a younger relative you're responsible for, or what do you do with your own virginity? So he's giving that advice, because these are two possible interpretations of the word virgin in this part we will read. If one thinks he is acting improperly towards the virgin he is engaged to, or towards his own virginity, and if she is getting along in years, or if he is getting along in years, and he feels he ought to marry or allow his virgin daughter or relative to marry, he should do as he wants, as it's reasonable and feasible. He is not sinning. That's if the person gets married, although he was trying to abstain and remain a virgin, or if his younger relative girl was abstaining but now she would like to get married. This is not wrong. He is not doing a sin. They should get married. But the man who has settled the matter in his own mind, who is under no compulsion but has control over his own will to keep his virginity or her virginity, and who has made up his mind not to marry the virgin, means his virgin to others, giving himself and his virginity to a spouse, or to allow his daughter the virgin to get married, this man also does the right thing. So then, he who marries the virgin, his virgin or himself, does right, but he who does not marry does even better. Again, the even better here, the preference here relates to the 4 conditions we heard of, and none of them relates to sex being defiled or unclean. It is only to save you the difficulties and trouble of this world, because the time is short and Christ is coming. A woman is bound to her husband as long as he lives, but if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, and the same for the man. But he must belong to the Lord. Now he starts to continue what I said to you first. If you were married to an unbeliever before coming to Christ, you keep that marriage. If the unbeliever wants to stay, if he wants to go, you're free to remarry. But now, if her husband dies, she is free to marry anyone she wishes, and the same for if the husband was an unbeliever and he leaves. But now, because she is a believer, if she remarries, it has to be a believer. That's the meaning of he must belong to the Lord. In my judgment, she is happier if she stays as she is, and I think that I too have the Spirit of God. And again, as I repeat for the 10th time, celibacy and abstention from marriage here was given as an advice because of the difficulties at that time in the Christian society being persecuted, not as an absolute for all times and all places. Otherwise, the distorted idea of celibacy above marriage in quality and in esteem in the eyes of God, I believe this is heresy, and it cannot fit in with the Genesis message of God said it is not good for a man or a woman to be alone. So he created the differentiation in sex. In other words, if you try to say celibacy is better than marriage, it's exactly the same as going to God and telling God, listen, God, I can improve on your opinion. I understand what you're saying, but we have a better idea. And we think that what St. Paul says is that better idea because we understood St. Paul in that distorted manner. Isn't it good that we do what we understood rather than following your opinion, God? Think. And now we go to chapter 11 in the first epistle to the Corinthians, where he says, now I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ. The head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Beautiful. So I think I've discussed this earlier, but I'll repeat it again. God the Father is the head of Christ. Christ is the head of every man. Man is the head of woman. If you take only the last bit of these 3 bits and understand it in a social context, you would say that the man is superior to the woman And being the head means she is to be obedient to him because he's the head. She's junior and he's senior. And that is by nature, because that's what you understand if you interpret it in this way. But thank God a million times that when St. Paul put it, he puts it in that sequence. God the Father and the Son. God the Son and man, man and the woman. So what he's trying to say is, understand please first the relationship and the equality of God the Father and the Son. If you understand their relationship, you will now understand what I mean by Christ and man, mankind, or the man, the male, and his wife. But if you don't understand the equality of God the Father and the Son, then you are not reading my words as St. Paul in the way I wanted you to understand it. So the headship of a husband and on a wife, actually, the word ras means head or headship here, also is like the words, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, or the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And in Arabic it is written, the fear of God is the head of wisdom. And the word in the Hebrew, head or beginning, is one and the same word. And it is in the Greek kephalon, which means the head, the start of, the beginning of. So he might very well have meant that because the Father is the origin, the source of the Son of God, not the other way around, and Christ is the origin of all mankind and the creation. In that sense, the male man, according to the story of Adam and Eve, was created first, and Eve came out of him, and he was the source of Eve. So the headship here has nothing to do with political or social context of senior and junior, but he may be talking about what we understand as the source of. Of course, in God the Father and the Son, the word source here and the origin does not mean a time lapse, because in God there is no time, but for us in humans there is time. So he was understanding the idea that Adam, man, came first, woman, Eve, came second. So there is no way to take that verse in the social context of somebody greater than the other, because if you do this, you've misunderstood the totality of the verse and you corrupted your belief and your understanding of the Holy Trinity. A big, difficult heresy. I hope this point is absolutely clear, because many husbands misunderstand it, many women misunderstand it, and because our societies in the East are all patriarchal, I mean dominated by males, rather than matriarchal, dominated by women. And women along the history of the whole world, in fact, even in the West, have been always dominated by men and suppressed by men and oppressed by men. Only in the last 50 years or so that women are getting sort of equality in society, even in the West. So in the East, I don't need to go into details, just look at all societies and communities around us and you'll understand that women don't have equal rights like men. Whatever we say about this, the fact of the matter is she is not yet. But we have to understand that our Christian and Pauline, from St. Paul, Pauline revolution is to understand that man and woman are really equal, like God the Father and the Son. Keep that important idea there in your mind, so we don't corrupt the understanding here. And that's why he also says woman is not without the man and man is not without the woman. And it also means woman is not less than the man and the man is not less than the woman. They are co-equals, like Father and Son, Holy Spirit in the Trinity.